What's that agenda?
Good. Now I can into business. Oh,
All right, sir. We have 4 members so far. Yourself, Honorable Paul Begay, Honorable Charlene So, and Honorable Edison Nika here in LOC.
at LOC?
Oh, Let's Council's using BNF, so we got kicked out. We're down here.
Oh, I
Where
see.
we're at.
Well, let's call this work session to order then
Rishi?
for May 6th. Mr. Mose, roll call, please.
Yes, sir. Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
Present.
Yes, sir. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Carl Russell Slater. Honorable Paul Begay, Honorable Paul Begay Jr.
For the second time, present.
I'm sorry. One of those mornings. I haven't finished my coffee yet. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Pernell Halona. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Daniel E. So.
Present.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Edison J. Wanika.
Here.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Carl Russell Slater.
Present.
Thank you, sir. Honorable Charlene So. Honorable Charlene So. Chair, I see her on the screen. She's still muted. Honorable Charlene So. Even without her voice, there's 4 present, so we've got enough for a quorum.
Thank you, Mr. Mose. Thank you for helping us get this meeting started. At this point, Cecilia, Honorable Edison Wanika, could you provide us the invocation? Are we still on the call?
Good, sir. Good.
Can you hear me? I was saying the prayer.
I didn't hear.
Oh, good. Can you hear us now?
Oh, I can hear you now.
Okay. So that's when I turn in the kada we saw that's when have when Lord less. Kana zun bagan ne go that's when. Naka Just a minute, my phone. So hutao kuro so zanigi benchi da ni ko ba he ni za to in kha bikawin la ro za ton benikidin I kwiro chamba ke kwinzen around astudo sani na kabel kon lo le ne masan ne cheda te ya te besang aro le to asin so labachinda has te to kon ye go ni chena huis na do ta te ni chena hui na di kon ne trans ne gi di de kon sana ste ta no ye go biget hit hui ni ta te ko kwai to khajo beta ho ni chen do le ta ti ta sta ye go ta ba hat do ni khana ni ko ibn na she khajo ka ne cha ho hun za ho beta hini pa ko kwai ge to tlato ne ko chitli do le khajo bena she ka ne cha she asin za she hota ni hitla hol just to le ko khajo khata kuilian she do ta go shin leje beskade dikha ko kwai ge to panda ikha aron deta kon hela ne slang so that that khabson lo do le that atin le asin to na hat le dit at bena ne shta yosen in khabson lo do le aron deta kon san khan na ta has khada asin so bo la between da huitna asin so go between da the kokolo sato to hinan sato na khansla ko peso da wanda cheta no da go between da huitna ko to ya te ho ko do pada til nesto na so ya te ho ye da te do le isin ya da nenigi baba ke ho to ni jo ta bandit iro eton nitin so hota sinan sinil aron da kodo so there's a neighbor hitnitsen kodo on chin hitnitsen so that's one na haba ke hunsen ko anil to to na kin lo da huichin hil hon lo ko ibn na she kodo na ini tlezalton ben yeit enige ako ti kare kodo na so ne ta fon il so zigi bandit inlige khajo ilni khajo kodo elchen ke so khajo belt ahda ti ben yeit enige to sera dilni ben na che ta anishki ya to na ta anish so le hon so kodo so zani ben jahanara si do le to ya te ho shita to asto nakhalchini that ni gan khilkhat an in khabl khon lo do le won so kodo ni get asai benas Jesus Christ intentionality do le amen.
Okay, Chile. Thank you for including all our Niteneto, Nikedo, Nikes, and although Inla, Italy, sorry for the interruption. It's kind of almost we're a little disconnected, but mainly because you have to relocate to LOC and we're having to call in by teleconference. Hey, what Committee members, do you have any announcements?
Chair, this is Leonard. The advisor today will be Lorraine Spencer.
Oh, okay. Ms. Spencer, are you on the line?
Good morning, everybody. Yes, I'm on the line. Thank you.
Oh, good morning. Committee members. Just one announcement. In the college commencement exercises will happen tomorrow in 2 sections. One that starts at 9 a.m. and then another one that starts at 1 p.m. Basically because of all the CDC guidelines. And I haven't heard when NTU is going to be having theirs. I know some of the high schools are the weekend of the 14th. So just that particular announcement. Anybody else? Okay, then let's move on to recognizing guests and visiting officials. For the folks on the line, could you introduce yourselves?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Deanna Neswagishi, Division of Social Services. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Tamara Johnson with the Office of the President and Vice President. Thank you.
Good morning. This is Regina Yazzie, Department of Family Service.
Yate, this is Tommy Sosi on the line.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the committee. This is Rosalind Begay with Division of Social Services. Good morning.
Good morning. This is Roxanne Gorman, Department Manager for the Department for Self-Reliance.
Good morning. This is Michelle Moore from Department of Health.
Good morning. This is Mary Deschini Reyna, Division of Social Services.
Good morning, Chairman. This is Manuel Rico with Legislative Services on the line, listening in as well. Good morning to the rest of the members of the Health, Education, and Human Services Committee.
Thank you. Thank you for all the folks that are on the call. Do we have Pernell Halono on the call? He's the sponsor of 077 0077-21. With that, let's move on to the next item on the agenda. The committee had called for this work session to be apprised of what the amendments would entail as far as the organizational structure and the other items that are called for in the legislation. So with that, Mr. Mose or Miss Spencer, guide me along. I'm between workstations and I'm depending on the phone by itself. What is the next item on our agenda?
Mr. Chair, can you hear me?
Yes.
Okay, for a work session, you just go directly into the item that is on the agenda. What agenda? So for a work session, you did the call the work session to order, the roll call, and you did the invocation. You did the recognized guests and visiting officials, and you would just go right into the work session topics, which is the number 3 work session topics. A, introduction and purpose of work session presented by Chair Daniel So, HES Committee. And then the next item would be B, which is the legislation 07721. A, presentation on legislation number 00721, an action relating to health, education, and human services, amending the Navajo Nation Division of Social Services plan of operation for the Navajo Office of Executive Director and Navajo Department of Self-Reliance, approving the plan of operation for Navajo Family Assistance Services Program, and rescinding resolution HEHSC 26-16, the plan of operation for Navajo school clothing program by primary sponsor Pernell Halona, co-sponsor Edison J. Winika, and Deanne Neswit Gishi, Executive Director, Division of Social Services and staff. And B will be questions and recommendation. And following that will be the announcement, close of work session. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Spencer. So with that, committee members, let's bring the presenters, Ms. Diana Neswit Gishi and Division of Social Services staff that are on the call. Ms. Neswit Gishi, you have the floor.
Good morning, Mr. Chair, members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee, those attending virtually. Good morning, and thank you for the opportunity to expound on legislation number 0077-21. My name is Deanna Neswit Gishi, Executive Director for the Navajo Division of Social Services. This morning, I'm accompanied by several division staff members who might assist with my presentation, including Mrs. Roxanne Gorman, Department Manager for Department for Self-Reliance, Ms. Madalena Key, Senior Program Project Specialist with the Navajo Family Assistance Services, Ms. Brenda Sosi, Principal Accountant for the Division of Social Services, and Ms. Rosalind Begay, Senior Program Project Specialist. And so with the legislation, we had over a year of operating with the Master Plan of Operation approved by Resolution HEHSCJ-02-20 in January 2020. And so, Mr. Chair, we did submit a PowerPoint presentation as well. I don't know if one of your assistants is able to put that on. Otherwise, I will just read over the comments as well. So on page 2 of the slide presentation that was sent to all the committee members yesterday by Ms. Rosalind Begay, we started with a background with the Division of Social Services. On August 11, 1960, Navajo Nation Council Resolution ACAU-1 42-60, established a health and welfare department. By Navajo Nation Resolution CO-65-77, the Division of Social Welfare was established. Over the years, the Division of Social Service Plan of Operations were amended to rename and or establish, merge, separate, or abolish departments and programs. On January 8, 2020, after several work sessions, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee passed legislation 0303-19, which resulted in Resolution HEHSCJA-020-20 approving the Division of Social Services Master Plan of Operation, excluding the Navajo Children and Family Services. On May 13, 2020, the Health, Education, Human Services Committee passed legislation 0108-20, which resulted in Resolution HEHSCMY-07-20, renaming the Navajo Children and Family Services to approving a plan of operation for the Navajo Indian Child Welfare Act program. On page 3 of the present slide presentation, it shows the organizational structure for the Division of Social Services. On the top is Office of the President and Vice President. Directly below is Division of Social Services Executive Director. Below that is the Deputy Division Director. And then there are 6 sections under the Office of the Executive Director: Information Technology Section, Policy Section, Administrative Support Section, Financial Management Section, Human Resource Section, and the Communication Section. Directly under the Division of Social Services Executive Director, currently there is 6 programs or departments: Department for Self-Reliance, Department of Family Services, Department of Child Care and Development, the Navajo Indian Child Welfare Act program, Navajo Treatment Center for Children and Families, Navajo Developmental Disabilities, and attached with this organizational structure is what we're proposing, a 7th program, which would be the Navajo Family Assistance Services Program. On page 4 of the slide, the Office of the Executive Director is to ensure essential, high quality, comprehensive, and culturally relevant human services and social services are accessible and provided on and near the Navajo Nation, where mandated by applicable laws, statutes, and regulations. The Division of Social, Mr. Chair. I'm sorry, I thought someone was making a comment. The Executive Director administers and directly supervises 3 departments and 3 programs. Again, the Navajo Family Assistance Services Program is being added as a 4th program. And again, there's 3 departments as well. The Deputy Division Director directly supervises the 6 sections within the Office of the Executive Director and is delegated in the absence of the Executive Director. The 6 sections of the Office of the Executive Director provides technical guidance and support to the departments and programs. The Executive Director has the overall authority of the division's operational planning and direction, including report and be responsible to the President, provide efficient and effective overall management and financial direction to the departments, programs, centers, sections, and offices within the policies and procedures of the Navajo Nation. 3rd, report to the Health, Education, Human Services Committee. 4th, execute the powers and authority of the division pursuant to 2 Navajo Nation Council Section 1604. Bullet 5, issues, procedures to ensure proper and timely implementation of the division's projects. Bullet 6, represent the division through lobbying, advocacy, testifying, and maintaining the government-to-government relationship with federal, state, and local governments as authorized. The Division of Social Services as well, we will establish and maintain partnership with federal, state, county, local, and other entities on human services and social services and other matters related to the division's goals and objectives. Next bullet, recommend policies and legislation on human services and social services issues. Negotiate written agreements or contracts on behalf of the division relevant to its direct human services and social service departments, programs, functions, services, and activities. We also seek external funding and other resources to enhance, expand, and improve direct human services and social service programs, functions, services, and activities. Recommend creation, merger, separation, amendment, or abolishment of departments, programs, sections, offices, or specific functions within the division pursuant to applicable Navajo Nation laws and policies, and to recruit, select, supervise, and train personnel, conduct employee performance evaluation, and recommend reclassification of positions for the Office of the Executive Director of Personnel and Department of Program Managers pursuant to Navajo Nation Personnel Policies Manual. On slide 7, the Office of the Executive Director of Personnel shall handle its duties and responsibilities as follows. Assist with overall direction of the division by developing, implementing, monitoring, and evaluating short to long-term range goals, initiatives, plans, goals, and objectives. Support departments, programs, centers, sections, and offices to execute its functions, authorities, and responsibilities, and assist with development and coordination of strategies to implement the division's functions, and develop, implement, and maintain an administrative, operational, and technical infrastructure to support the performance of direct human services and social service departments, programs, functions, services, and activities by establishing 6 sections. So on the PowerPoint, we go in specifically to the 6 sections. The Office of the Executive Director Information Technologies section, an IT section to be responsible for the management of reliable and efficient information technology system to accommodate a secured exchange of human, case management, financial, and social service data and information for program management, data collection, analysis, and reporting, automation of manual work, modernize administrative functions, and monitor, update, and maintain the division's website, medium, telecommunications equipment, hardware, and software. And the Office of the Executive Director Policy section is responsible for increased cooperation, collaboration, and partnership across multiple human and social service sectors to develop, revise, or interpret policies, procedures, standards, and protocols for efficient, effective, and adequate management of the division. Provide guidance on human and social service policies, conduct research, analysis, and develop recommendations on current and proposed federal, state, and tribal legislation, regulations, and policies for their potential impact on the Navajo people and human and social services. Coordinate tribal consultation activities with the federal, state, and local government agencies, and develop annual, quarter, and other reports, briefing materials, issue, position, or white papers, testimonies, and talking points. So currently in the Office of the Policy section is Ms. Rosalind Begay, so you may be receiving a lot of the reports from her. Next is the Office of the Executive Director Financial Management section, and this is where currently is Mrs. Brenda Sosi. So a financial management section is responsible for an efficient and effective financial management system to review and monitor agreements, contracts, and grants, develop and implement a property, procurement, and records management, develop, implement, and provide technical assistance with the application of internal control standards and measures, monitor internal and external audits, and serve as a prime contact for budget formulations, budget negotiation, audit, and conditions of appropriations and other compliance. The next section is the Office of Executive Director Human Resource section. We do have a new hire, Ms. Mary Deschini Reina. She is in this position now. She is responsible for a sound human resource system to ensure a competent workforce through assessment of personnel competencies, individual training, and professional development. Support the departments and programs to attract, recruit, onboard, and retain personnel through the application of a premium salary schedule for professional personnel who meet the minimum and preferred qualifications. Monitor compliance with the Navajo Nation Personnel Policies Manual, licensure, certification, employee relations, collective bargaining, and risk and safety policies, and to monitor the work environment. Next is the Office of the Executive Director Administrative Support Section, and that's Ms. Emma Hanna and Ms. Nicolette Begay. The Administrative Support Section is responsible to ensure continuous flow of communication and information between the Office of the Executive Director and the department's program sections, centers, and offices, and oversee employee timekeeping and reporting. New is the Office of the Executive Director Communication Section, and we will be onboarding a new employee in this section. We have briefly just provide information, communication, alerts, and advice about human service and social services to the general public and media in a timely, accurate, and adequate manner. Again, this position would be filled as well. So I'm going into the specific reason for the legislation 0077-21. Again, where we are proposing in the Office of the Executive Director Plan Operation to add a seventh, I guess it's a fourth program. Again, there's 3 sections, so there will be 7 sections within the Division of Social Services. So with the change, there will be one change with the Department for Self-Reliance. So the Department of Self-Reliance uses the Navajo concept and teachings of Tahuachitego to provide financial assistance and supportive services to eligible families with minor children, to empower them for assuming responsibility for their lives through the development and implementation of a personal responsibility plan, which guides families towards self-reliance. The Department for Self-Reliance is directed and supervised by Mrs. Roxanne Gorman, Department Manager 3. Department for Self-Reliance Administrative Office consists of 8 support section support services, which is a finance and recovery, information technology, tribal assistance system administration, communication, compliance, liaison, legislative, fraud and investigation, and pathways to quality services. For their direct services, they have field office sites in Chinle, Crown Point, Farmington, Gallup, Kayenta, Window Rock, Tuba City, and Lower Greasewood Springs sub-office. And they have 2 direct service sections, Family Assistance Services and Education and Career Services. The Family Administrative Services will be transferred to a separate as an independent program. So with the plan of operation for Department for Self-Reliance, this would be the area that would be taken out. Department for Self-Reliance is responsible to administer the federal legislative intent of Public Law 104-193, the Personal Responsibility and Work Opportunity Reconciliation Act of 1993, and other external and internal funded programs. They are also responsible to promote personal responsibility and self-reliance through the Navajo traditional teachings of Tahuachitego and provide assistance and services that empower customers and families to provide to progress toward Hojon. Reduce further dependency on government assistance by promoting education, employment, safe and stable families, and healthy lifestyles. They also to develop, negotiate, and implement agreements and contracts. It will monitor and evaluation program operations, services, resources, and expenditures. Assure due process is provided to customers who would like to dispute a decision. They also establish, maintain, and improve necessary infrastructure, including information technology, to provide effective and efficient overall management and financial guidance to the support services, quality management and direct services, and to ensure continuity of services, assistance, and activities provided to customers and families, and to promote and support the professional growth of the Department for Self-Reliance personnel through educational, training, and advancement opportunities, so the services provided to customers continually improves and expands. So we will be deleting the following provisions as provided by the Navajo Family Assistance Services. So being deleted from the plan of operation is 1, provide school clothing assistance to eligible Navajo children, school-age children who are enrolled in and attending schools on the Navajo Nation. Also being deleted from the Department for Self-Reliance plan of operation is promote home energy crisis intervention by providing financial assistance to eligible households with low income to meet their immediate home energy needs. Again, this 2 provisions will be deleted from Department for Self-Reliance, but that will be added on to the Navajo Family Assistance Services, which I will get to next. Okay, the Navajo Family Assistance Services program will provide financial assistance support to eligible and individual and families for their basic needs. NFAS is the acronym for Navajo Family Assistance Services, will be directed and supervised by Program Manager 2. Navajo Family Assistance Services will have offices in Chinle, Crown Point, Shiprock, Tuba City, and Window Rock, and that's where they currently are as well. Navajo Family Assistance Services will be responsible to collaborate and coordinate with other departments and programs within the Division of Social Services and the administration of the Public Law 93-638, the Public Law 97-35, and other external and internal funded programs in full compliance with the Navajo Nation and federal laws, regulations, and policies. NFAS will also seek, secure, and administer funding from the federal, tribal, and other agencies, provide administrative, technical, and operational support and training to the division, departments, programs, and offices. They'll also develop policies, procedures, and protocols to implement the purpose of the NFAS, monitor and evaluate program operations, services, resources, and expenditures to assure, improve, and expand the effectiveness, efficiency, and coordination of direct service delivery. Provide financial assistance for eligible Navajo children attending school on or off the Navajo Nation to purchase school clothing or supplies that would encourage their school attendance and support academic performance on an annual basis. Provide general assistance for eligible individuals to meet their basic essential needs for self-sufficiency. Provide financial burial assistance for eligible decedents. Provide financial assistance for home energy crisis, weatherization, and energy related minor home repairs for eligible individuals, and provide financial assistance to eligible individuals and families to alleviate the causes and conditions of impoverishment in communities. Mr. Chair, members of the Health Education Services, that concludes the PowerPoint presentation, which was emailed to you, and I am available for any specific questions. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Nesbitt Gishi. Committee members. Ms. Nesbitt Gishi. Honorable Edison Juanita, you have the teleconference floor.
Thank you, Chair, and members of the committee, and all those that called in, and for the presenter, Ms. Gishi. I appreciate the presentation that was made, but I would like for Ms. Kishi to also go into the legislation before us, because the main plan of operation that we're going to be approving is Exhibit C, the Family Assistance Services Program Plan of Operation. I'd like her to go through that. I think she already did to an extent based on the presentation she made. But there's areas that I'm very concerned about in reference to the as far as the chart that's on
Page 3.
On the organizational chart, because she spoke mostly of manager 2, but there's a manager 3. There's 2, and I don't see any manager 2 on that organizational chart. Where did they come in? But in reference to her presentation, she mentioned manager 2 positions. I remember when this plan of operation was presented to us, there was be a change to manager 3. So those are the explanation that I would like to have, and then I have other questions that I have to present. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Wanika. I guess number one, if we could have staff that heads each of those boxes in the organizational chart. Basically give us their view. I mean, what was presented is OEDs. This is how the organization is. But I would like to hear from each of the managers. On how they see their role and how they will implement delivery of services that they're responsible for. It's all good and for presentation, but let's get down to the nitty-gritty. And how are you going to measure these aspects that you're saying, we're going to do this, we're going to do that, this is how we're going to work together, this is how we're going to collaborate. What are the measures? What will be the measures? In addition to what Honorable Wanika brought to the table. Ms. Gishi and staff.
Yeah.
Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee. Thank you, Honorable Wanika, for the question regarding the attachment of the position title for the Navajo Family Assistance Services Program. So currently, that position is, the position title is a Senior Program Project Specialist. Again, because it was not a direct manager position, because it was under the Department for Self-Reliance. So now that it is going, we're recommending to have it established as a separate independent program is where we will be working to reclassify the senior program project specialist to a program manager too. And so before I turn over my time to the two managers, Mr. Chair, I didn't go into specifically for the reason for the recommendation of the change of the Navajo Family Assistance Services as a separate independent program under the auspices of the Division of Social Services. Currently, the Navajo Family Assistance Services operates with a combined total budget of $21,558,962, which is a Navajo Nation General Fund and federal funding. Of the total budget, 94% of the federal, 95% of the budget is federal and 6% is Navajo Nation funding. The Navajo Family Assistance Services operates with 24 employees and 10 field offices serving thousands of clients and families that need financial assistance. Recently, the Consolidated Appropriations Acts of 2021 and the American Rescue Plan Act of 2021 created the Low Income Household Water Assistance Program. You may have heard the term LIWAP, which is a new emergency program, which is similar to LIHEAP, Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. The Navajo Nation President designated Navajo Family Assistance Services to implement the new LIWAP program. The Navajo Nation has not received this LIWAP funding allotment amount yet, but was required to submit several grant award documentations by April 27, 2021 in order to receive the initial grant. So that was submitted, Mr. Chair. Additionally, positions will be created with additional funding, federal funding. NFAS is receiving, and NFAS is expanding and enhancing direct service delivery to increasing number of clients and families for which it needs to operate independently under the division. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to turn over the time to Mrs. Roxanne Gorman to expand on her comments regarding this plan of operation amendments. And she can provide her response specifically to the questions raised. Mrs. Gorman.
Good morning, members of the Health and Education and Human Services Committee. The intent initially when we first established Navajo Family Assistance Services was to provide technical support so that NFAS could become automated. And we have a case management software, we call it TAS, short for Tribal Assistance Services. And we use TAS to serve 3,000 families every month. Our staff are trained to be TAS certified, and TAS has been able to be efficient in serving that many and also to generate payments through 2 batches. We have data ports that are assigned to our department. And we've been using this system, the case management software system, for over 11 years. And it's been very helpful for us to be able to help so many, and to also for reporting purposes. For measures for TANF, measures that are necessary for our federal funds is every quarter we have to submit a federal report. And that federal report determines our mandatory work participation rate, which is a requirement. We ever fall below that rate, the Navajo Nation could be served a penalty of 5% of our $31 million that we receive annually. 5% of 31 million is 1.5 million. I'm very happy to report we've not had to, we've not been penalized. The work participation rate is mandatory, so every quarter we submit federal data using the data that's entered by our staff on these families. How many are doing work participation? How many are parents, grandparents serving grandchildren? How many adults are there? How many children? and you can drill down to many fields to develop reports. So that's a measure. The second measure is we have to submit every quarter a 196T on our financial expenditures. And what we do is we work with the contract accounting to produce that report. And that's every quarter. So every quarter we have 2 reports that are measures that are necessary to our grantor to show that we are in good standing. And another measure is our annual audit. I did get a response from the auditors a week ago that they're almost done with their audit. They have no questions. We don't know the results of that audit. As of today, we do know that the pandemic may have an impact, but we did not fall too far from our work participation rate. So those are 3 measures TANF has that is necessary. And so when we began to assist the Navajo Family Assistance Services, they have multiple funding. And we had hoped to get them on TAS, but to do that, they had to revisit their policies, because policies is what drives TAS. TAS can be customized based on the policies. So LIHEAP had to be revised, and I understand it was recently approved. General assistance and burial assistance had to be extracted from the Department of Family Services protocol to be a separate policy. I understand those are pending review and will still need approval. And then CSBG is still, I think, under development. And now there's additional funds. Each of these funds, there's a module that TAS is set up for. There is a LIHEAP module, there is a GA module, and there's a CSBG module. So we were working with the INFAS ASO to pursue this effort of becoming automated. And we began in, they were beginning to physically transfer in January. And February, we were in the midst of it. And then we got hit with the pandemic, and you all know the rest of the story. We continued to work with INFAS to try to get them to receive training on TAS, to revise these policies, to help be clear about the different funding strands, because you have to maintain separate funding strands to be in compliance. You can never commingle or merge. And so they have multiple funding strands that they had to maintain separately. And we tried to give them the technical support to define those areas and then to renew applications. So there was a lot of things happening, even though we had this pandemic. And of course, INFAS got hit hard with burial assistance, general assistance, LIHEAP. And it became where it was impossible to have them shift and focus just on becoming automated, because all these other demands were placed on them. And we were working 3 days a week, and we were off 2 days admin leave so that we could continue to provide services to those we serve. And I don't know the numbers that INFAS serves, but I know it's like 8,000 perhaps. We serve about 3,000 families. So the logistics became such that it was very challenging. And in the middle of that, we also had to maintain separateness of TANF dollars from INFAS multiple funding, because we couldn't use TANF dollars to oversee INFAS. They had to use their own funds, and we were working with our internal, with our external consultants to help them, but we were also advising them because of the need to maintain that separateness. And so I think as we continued this effort, it was determined that it was best to have them become a standalone. They also were successful in first time in history. I understand that the 638 contract was separated into 3. INFAS has its own contract for the first time. Before that, they were dependent on the Department of Family Services, and that's significant. Now they are able to control and maintain their own 638 contract for operational and budgetary concerns. So that was a good progress made to have its own separate contract. And so with that, it was determined that it was best that INFAS become a standalone because of how many multiple funds they have, because of how they have their own contract now. And as a result of that, it was important to continue the automation, as I understand that they are in the midst of becoming TAS certified, that they will eventually have the benefits we have had for the last 11 years to be more transparent, to be more immediate with reports. And I don't, that with multiple funding sources, there's different reporting requirements. They will be more efficient in submitting those reports because those three measures that TANF has required to have every through the course of the year is generated by the TAS system. It's really helped our department to stay on top and be in good standing for the last 11 years. Hopefully this year too, we'll have a clean audit. And that is significant because we do expend quite a bit through the course of the year. And so I think those are the benefits as to this and INFAS becoming a standalone. It's no longer under an umbrella. It's going to be able to be more efficient, effective, and able to push out, I think, all these different multiple funding sources and expand with all the funds they're getting. I believe they do need to expand in the support they need. So I hope that's been helpful. That is my response. Thank you.
Thank you, Mrs. Gorman, for the information on the Department for Self-Reliance Plan of Operation change and providing information on your program, our department services and measurement and audit. And so, Mr. Chair, we also will have Ms. Madeline Key provide information on the Navajo Family Assistance Services, on all of the various program and services and funding that they have to support why it should be a separate standalone. Basically, it would be financial assistance service program within the Division of Social Services. Ms. Madeline Key, please.
Good morning, Mr. Chair and members of the committee. This is Madalena Key. I'm the Senior Programs Project Specialist for the Navajo Family Assistance Services. So I will go over our program for Navajo Family Assistance Services. As Ms. Deanna and Ms. Roxanne Gorman went over, we do have a large program. We have our general assistance, our burial assistance, low-income home energy assistance, community services block grant, and our Navajo school clothing. And all of our program funding had received an additional funding for each program. Our LIHEAP did receive CARES funding. Community Services Block Grant also received CARES funding. Our general assistance received COVID funding. Burial assistance also received COVID funding. So all program, and then our last program, LIHEAP, also received the LAWAP for water assistance. So as Roxanne, as Ms. Gorman stated, our program will be utilizing, continue to implement the tribal assistance system to be able to run the reports as she indicated. That does have sufficient reporting that we would be reporting on different individuals such as elderly, children, families with young children, those that are disabled, and then families who, I guess it's a different type of reporting that we would be reporting towards our funding agency. For each program, it would be specific. So we are excited to implement our TAS tribal assistance system. So that way it helps us as far as getting the reporting standards, being able to report on a timely basis. Right now, currently, we are doing manual process, but once we get our tribal assistance system, it will be able to allow us to be able to work more efficiently, be able to work with multiple fundings, And I believe that's it. That's all I have as far as our program and services.
Thank you, Ms. Key, for that update. And so, Mr. Chair, with the Navajo Family Assistance Services, there are currently 10 different funding sources, as Ms. Key had indicated. And so one area that we wanted to present was we just are completing the 2019 audit with Moss Adams. And so with the Navajo Family Assistance Services, their burial assistance, they had cleared any type of potential findings, so they will not be having any findings with the Moss Adam, and we will have follow-up conference call on this on Monday. So they do have, the program has developed on its own to substantiate why it should be a separate standalone program. As Mrs. Gorman had mentioned, they could not have a lot of services provided with the concern of having the TANF dollars utilized for all these additional, we had no thought that we're going to have so many additional funding under NFAS. Again, our plan of operation was approved back in January 8, 2020, prior to the pandemic. So this gave us a full year to see that there is a need to have us as a separate standalone. So once we have our plan of operation considered, we will be coming forward with additional policies. We do have the community service block grant policy has been submitted a few months ago. We're waiting to have that come up for review. And so we're moving forward. Mr. Chair and members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee, we would like your support in amending the Division of Social Services plan of operation for the Office of Executive Director to add NFAS as a separate standalone program. Also, your support to amend the Department for Self-Reliance plan of operation to remove the NFAS services and to approve the new plan of operation establishing Navajo Family Assistance Services as a separate standalone program. Thank you, Mr. Chair and members of the committee.
Ms. Neswit Gishi, thank you. Okay. The presentation started out basically saying it's a case management system. Now, how does that transcend to where the need for a financial management system?
Thank you, Mr. Chair. And members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee. That is a great question, Honorable. So with the Tribal Assistance System, it is a comprehensive case management database. And so what that will do is, an example that we are working on currently is the LIHEAP program, Low Income Home Energy Assistance Program. And so what we're proposing now is any person that comes into in any of the offices for NFAS, they would be entered into the database system, electronic case management database. And so when a person comes in, their information on the application is entered into this case management database. And they would be, it would be looking at any potential duplication. So a person would come in and they'd be entered into the system. And so a flag may come up if anyone in that household has applied for LIHEAP in another household or in another office. And so it's going to catch any type of duplication. And once the family, all the documentation is in, what we're going to be working with next is Office of the Controller, where we could batch up the payments, and they can be sent out once they're batched into a data port, and then the payments can be made electronically. During this time of the pandemic, we had to have the employees come in because we did not have the sophistication of doing this remotely. And we had to have employees come into the offices for all of the department or all of the divisions programs so that we could enter payments and do case management as well. So we have started a plan of revamping our infrastructure. And this is where INFAS is falling in as well. They have received all new equipment, laptops, so they can be mobile. And if we do have to telework in the future, they can have that capability to take applications remotely, out in the field, if they have to be at home, shelter in place. So they will have that capability. Right now, we're looking at doing, having our case management paperless. So these are some areas that we are changing within the division, Mr. Chair. So, so payments can be made more efficiently. Right now, they're doing RDPs, request for direct payments. So each individual application, someone has to come into the office and type in manually a request for direct payment, have that all prepared, and then scan it, and then have it sent over to Office of the Controller for their processing, review and processing of the documents. And so some of the turnaround in the RDP process is taking, it can take 4 to 6 weeks. But when we do a batching process in this case management database, right now with the Department for Self-Reliance, they have 2 batch runs, and they have one the middle of the month and the end of the month. So anyone needing payments, they are batched in 2 times during the month, and payments are uploaded on a data port, sent to Office of the Controller. They review, and then payments can be made immediately that next day. And so that's the process that we're looking at with this case management database. So that can be similar to general assistance. We're talking about the community service block grant. And then for barrel assistance, they do have a process in place where they receiving records. Again, that's a lengthy process. So we're looking at using a case management database, which does include the financial processing. It's called where you can go back and look. So right now for data and statistics, it is done manually. And so when we have a case management database for the entire division of social services, we will be having separate modules for each department and program. So we're not able to look at everyone's data. But when we're needing reports or we're needing very specific data, we are able to obtain that from a case management database. And so, Mr. Chair, this is where, even though the Navajo Family Assistance Services is thought to not be doing case management, they do. They have to do intake, they have to do eligibility, they have to make a determination on the application, and then they have to send notice, a decision notice to the applicant. And all of that process can be done in a case management database. And so for statistical purposes, we can track what payments have been made. There's an accounting interface. in a case management database so we can easily track if payments were made in that area. So we're looking at reducing duplication. We're also looking at wraparound services. So we're looking at where a one-stop shop. And then so we do have a proposal with the American Rescue Act plan for the division to have our offices in one location. We all are very separate. And so if a person comes into the office, we send them in different directions for different services. And a person may not know that they are potentially eligible for some other services. And so with the one-stop shop concept, which we are proposing with our offices, because right now some of our programs are paying for lease payments. And those certainly could be used towards, other services towards families or the employees as well, increasing employees. So thank you, Mr. Chair, for that question. Thank you.
Committee members, any follow-up questions?
Chair, this is Delegate Slater.
Oh, Cecilia, Honorable Vice Chair Slater, you have the floor.
Thank you. So in the legislation, it's page 14, and it has the organizational chart. Is family assistance service, I'm trying to understand, is this the old organizational chart or is this the new one? Can you just clarify that for me? I assume it's the old one. I just want to confirm.
Mr. Chair and Honorable Slater. So I had my papers moved out of sequence. So if we're looking at attachment 1, Navajo Family Assistance Services Program, where it lists the program manager 2, accountant office specialist, and the ASO, and then the 5 regional offices, this would be the proposed plan of operation. Currently, there's not an accountant in the NFAS right now, as Mrs. Gorman had reported earlier. They were trying to provide that technical support. So an accountant position is currently in the Public Law 93-638 budget. So that position is there. So we will be doing it was actually advertised on the Navajo Nation Department of Personnel Management website. There was no applicants, so we'll have to re-advertise as well. Thank you, Honorable Slater, for the question.
Chair, can I ask another question?
Go ahead and follow up, Cecilia.
Okay. I feel like a lot of what has been presented is based off of efficiencies from a software system, and it's not necessarily premised upon the separation of this program into an independent department. And I'd like to hear more of the why. Like, why are we doing this? And not just saying it will yield efficiencies and yada, 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 but like actually have a thesis statement that's supported by facts and data. And I really want to hear that. I'm not opposed to this at all. And I think, it could be interesting, but I really want you to have strong justifications now and when you come back before the committee for the legislation's passage, because that's, 5, 10, 15 years down the line, if this is passed, you want to be able for future leadership, whether it's yourself or, and I don't think it'll be us delegates, but future delegates, to look back and say, okay, this is exactly what the logic was behind this, and that the institutional memory will be documented so that people know why decisions are made and what can be done in the future to address them, so that we're not going in a circle. So that's the first thing I'm asking. And then the second is, with respect to your federal funding, what are the programs that you work with saying on this reorganization? And is there anything that they have documented in writing to you to support or make amendments or edits to this proposed reorganization? Thank you.
Ms. Gishi?
Thank you, Chair So and Honorable Slater, for your question on the rationale. And so what we have been doing is trying to initially, prior to the January 8, 2020 plan of operation change, the Navajo Family Assistance Services was basically under the umbrella of the Department of Family Services. And that has been like that for years. Again, I've been with division. I started in 1993, and it had been that way. There was some inefficiencies, and there was some concern with social workers having to assist to do financial. There was no fine lines, as this is social services, social work, and that's where we did the presentations. Honorable Slater, prior to you coming on to your position as a delegate back in early or mid 2019. And so we wanted the Department of Family Services to focus more on social services, social work. And so, but they were sort of mixed with doing some of the financial components. And so we have principal social workers who are all MSW positions. They were focusing a lot of their time on doing the eligibility and approval of the financial services, the LIHEAP, CSBG, GA. So they were doing a lot of that, and they weren't focusing on the social work component. And so that's where we had made the recommendation to remove all of the financial services out of the Department of Family Services and to move them under the umbrella of the Department for Self-Reliance, because they have, they were doing the financial component with the TANF block grant. And again, so that was done in January 8, 2020. So again, during this pandemic that has happened, that started in March of 2020, is where we were able to see that we had to serve families in different ways with the financial component. So it was able to provide insight to all of us within the division that they have a specialty with the financial component. TANF was under the TANF block grant. That focus is the PERORA, Personal Responsibility Work Opportunity Act. That's what Department for Self-Reliance has to look at. So we started to see that the emphasis had changed to where we needed to have more focus and accountability of the financial purpose. So with the Department for Self-Reliance, they have ongoing case management. As Mrs. Gorman had mentioned, they have more than 3,000 families that they're continually serving. And they may have some closures and new families coming in. They have an ongoing plan that they work with the family, like a casework plan. Now, with the Navajo Financial Assistance Services, most of those services are one-time assistance. And so they didn't have the ongoing case management except general assistance. And general assistance, they're looking at 3 to 6 months. So they did not go on for long periods of time. So we started to see that there are significant changes regarding the Department for Self-Reliance, their focus, and how they were implementing their program, and then with the Navajo Financial Family Assistance Services. So we were able to observe that over a year period. And I do understand, Honorable Slater, your question for, how is this gonna pan out in the next year or so? Yes, I'm certain all of us will not be, in these positions 15 years from here. So to have some good grounding, thank you for that question. Regarding the federal funding, what we normally do is once we have plan of operation changes, then we inform our funding source. So it's just where internally we're moving the Navajo Family Assistance Services from under the Department for Self-Reliance into a separate standalone program, but it's still under the umbrella of the Division of Social Services. And so we will have that communication as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair and Honorable Slater, for your question.
Honorable Slater, do you have a follow-up?
My follow-up request is to ask for like a 2-page persuasive letter on this legislation requesting the committee's passage for our consideration at the next business meeting that we'll have to consider the legislation. I think right now, those are the only questions I have.
Thank you, Honorable Slater. Committee members.
Chair Wanika.
Oh, Cecilia, Honorable Wanika, you have the floor.
Thank you, Chair. You asked that the managers provide the report on the different programs under the Division of Social Service. And I'm just questioning whether Magdalena Key is the manager in FAS. If not, I'd like to hear from the manager if she's not the manager for that program. Thank you.
Thank you, Honorable Wanika, for reiterating that request. Ms. Key, Key?
Mr. Chair, I can answer that question. This is Deanna.
Ms. Neswood Gishi, it's specific to the person.
Hello, I'm on. Can you hear me? This is Madalena Key.
Yes, go ahead.
Okay. This is Madalena Key, and yes, I do oversee the Navajo Family Assistance Program as the Senior Programs and Project Specialist.
Are you the manager?
Yes, I am.
Okay, as a follow-up, Ms. Key, in using the case management system, how do you then improvise to make it a financial management system? There was reference to data port. Now, how do we assure that the data port is reliable? And what kind of internal controls do you have within that data port system?
Okay, with the Navajo Family Assistance Services, we are currently working manually meaning that we are doing our process based on application and then submitting what we call requests for direct payments to the Office of the Controllers. And from there, that's what takes anywhere from 3 to 4 weeks or sometimes months before payment is issued. And then when we transfer on to the case management system, the TAS system, it'll transfer our data into a data port, which payments will then be run, whether we choose to run it every two times a month, or if we choose to run it on a weekly basis. That'll be determined on each of our program and our services. And then once we determine our program services and the time that a data port will be run, payments will then be run more efficiently. And currently our payments are lagging. We do run into problems where payments issues and payments do get lost in transition, so we have to resubmit application, resubmit copies of paperwork for payments to be issued. If you will run through the data port, that data port will secure all information, run it within 2 to 3 days once we submit that over to Office of the Controllers. So we do see the major improvement as far as our payment processing, changing from a manual processing, going to our case management software, changing it to a data port, and then from there making payments out of our system.
Ms. Key, you're saying you're doing manual inputting.
Yes.
How soon will you convert to the new system?
Thank you for the question. Currently, we are working on our first program to be in testing process to be run on the data port, and that's our light heat program. So we anticipate that one to be run here shortly once we go through our testing with the Office of the Controllers. So right now it is in testing mode. Once we finish and finalize that testing, our light heat program will be one of the first ones to be run out of the TAS system.
Can you basically give us an overview of the internal controls in your data port system?
Okay, I'm not too sure I'm quite understanding. Internal controls, meaning application input into the system, and then once it's input into the system, it'll be run on a data port.
Okay, I guess the main thing is once you input it, then there is a certain amount of control that is lost. Your system dependent after that. And basically then how do you, let's say you have a default or a fault in the system, how do you retrieve what's been inputted?
Mr. Chair, this is Roxanne Gorman. May I explain our process? That is the same that would be applied to INFAS?
Go ahead, Ms. Gorman.
With our use of data port, we have trained our staff to be TAS certified, and they are knowledgeable of the policies that are necessary for TAS to be customized to fit our needs. And within TAS, there are internal controls that don't allow us to proceed if certain information is incorrect. The employee has to go in and make sure entries are correct. And so these internal controls within the module will say this person will stop because the person may have too much of some income or may not have the right information. So those internal controls are part of the software. And then as for the financial management, we were the first program to work with the Office of the Controller to use the data port, because prior to that, we were generating thousands and thousands of checks. And Mark Grant was the controller at the time. So we worked with him and Wells Fargo as to how we could have this system work together to process checks. So all the entries we make into our database will result in an eligibility determination at the local level. We don't make decisions at the central level for any of these decisions. So they're entered in, and then a batch is determined. And that prior to the batch, we inform our staff to make sure that all entries are correct so that a payment could be made because of those internal controls. And once we prepare the batch, then we also have to, there's a new requirement for the use of the data port. We have to submit a notice to the controller that there is sufficient funds. And if there is an error, we have to correct it. We have a process where we can make corrections in which we will notify if there is an error that the customer may have been overpaid. But that's another internal measure we have within our department. We have the means to collect, or if we underpaid, we have the means to correct that as well. We also have a TAS administrator. The division is also going to have an administrator. Our TAS administrator monitors for errors because our federal data has to be entered correctly in order for a work participation rate to be generated. Similarly, the TAS modules for LIHEAP, GA, and BA also have internal controls and also comply with the federal requirements to generate eligibility. And so NFAS will have to establish some internal procedures and process similar to ours as they continue to expand and grow. But these are measures we have currently in place. And then we also have to make sure that everybody's off the system when we run those batches so that the system runs it efficiently and effectively, that the checks are generated overnight or dependent on the OOCs when they usually do it in 1 to 2 days after the batch is run. So we do have internal controls, and the module does have the same measures. And likewise, LIHEAP, GA, and BA will have those, not BA, LIHEAP, GA, and CSBG will have those measures as well, because the system will have to comply with the policy as it's required. And then the reports, if LIHEAP has a quarterly report, it'll generate those. And with the administrator that the division has or will hire, they too will be part of the monitoring process to check for errors and prior to any batch. So that I hope that's helpful, and I know Deanna has more of an overview of how the division will handle it. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Okay. In regards to in with the NAFIS Office of Self-Reliance, is there close coordination with the division's financial management system? And I guess the main thing is there was a section in there that caught my eye that said that they would someone would enter into contracts, and I thought it was only the president that could enter into contracts. And so that's of concern. The other, I guess, is Um, the Office of Self-Reliance had taken on the Navajo School Clothing Program. And without amendment to that plan of operation, it was renamed Education Incentive Program. Now, how are we handling that? It was that condition that it was only for school children on the Navajo Nation. And there was major concern that it needed to include all Navajo students, regardless of where they're enrolled. The other part, what I'm missing from this presentation, is we have funding that goes to the domestic violence shelters. And the committee has had particular focus on that aspect. And I don't see any reference to it in the presentation. So that concerns me. So Ms. Neswit Gishi and Ms. Regina Yazzie and Ms. Roland Begay, perhaps we can start discussion on those items. Ms. Lorraine Spencer, could you make contact with the office of the controller regarding, there was some statements referencing the controller, and I would like to seek some input from her regarding, and she had previously also expressed concern about the case management system being used to make financial disbursements. Ms. Neswit Gishi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for the questions and members of the Health, Education, Human Services Committee. In the comment regarding enter contracts and only Navajo Nation president has that authority, yes. We do initiate all of the documentation for contracts, and they do go through the 164 review process. And yes, the president is the only one that that is in the position to sign on any contracts. In regards to self-reliance, having the school clothing under the plan of operation and where it was renamed the Navajo Educational Incentive, again, as presented, it is removed from, it is proposed to be removed from the Department for Self-Reliance plan of operation, and then it would be entered onto the proposed plan of operation for Navajo Family Assistance Services, and it would be having the same name of Navajo School Clothing. And I did present on there that it is for any Navajo child on or off the Navajo Nation, Mr. Chair. And then regarding funding for to the domestic violence shelter, and that there was no reference in this presentation. Mr. Chair, you're correct. We did not cover domestic violence shelter because that is under the Department of Family Services plan of operation. We were prepared. We do have that information as well in a separate PowerPoint presentation, just in preparation for questions today. So that is why we did not cover it, but we do have a work session with Department of Family Services next week. So certainly we'll be covering all of those next week as well. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. Neswitz, Gishi.
Mr. Chair?
Who is this?
Hi, members of the committee. Ron Haven here, Legislative Council. I'm on the call as well. If the committee would allow me, I have a question on this matter as well, if it's okay. If not, I understand. Thank you.
Mr. Haven, please give us some guidance and focus us with your question.
Yeah, thank you very
Mr.
much.
Haven.
Okay, can you hear me? Hello?
Committee members, I can hear him. Committee members, can you hear?
Yes, we can hear you, Mr. Haber.
Yeah, we can hear him.
Okay, thank you very much, members of the committee. When I took a look at the current proposed bill, the proposed legislation you all have, one of the things that I know this has been raised before regarding school clothing, and it's not referenced insofar as the 2016 legislation. You'll notice in January 2020 of last year, it wasn't mentioned as well. And I noticed when it came across my desk here, it still wasn't mentioned as well. The 2016 plan of operation for the school clothing program, and it's there. Perhaps I need some understanding insofar as the reference to the incentive program. If the program can help me understand that, where that appears. I do apologize. I have a lot of documents here. Now, you'll notice on the bill, and I will provide additional recommendations to the committee, possibly after the work session here upon some clarification. There's a couple of areas that I'll submit those in written form to the chair and the committee members on where there may need to be some amendments on this bill, particularly in respect to the first couple pages. I'm just talking about the bill draft, not so much the exhibits for now. But with respect to the school clothing program, you'll notice there's some additions, and if you turn to your bill here, the reference to rescinding legislation, you'll see that on the heading on line 18 and 19, and you don't really have to look it up right now, but basically there is also a rescinding language. Now that is coming from Legislative Council, and I'm not entirely sure why, if there is reference now to place the program. If it is a program, it sounds like so there was no reference to it. It's the resolution of the committee from 2016. What is it that the program wants to do with this resolution? So I have put in there rescinding that resolution, and I put it as an attachment. What I didn't do is just cross over the entirety of the resolution. Okay, normally that's what we do for when you rescind, let's say, a plan of operation. The practice has been to overstrike the language entirely on the plan of operation. So you'll have an attachment on your bill that's put on there as D, Exhibit D. That's your school clothing program. Now, if the program or services that are going to be provided here are going to be placed under the I believe under, is it family? It's gonna be placed under family assistance services, as I understand it. And I wasn't quite sure of what the program would do with the 2016 resolution, since the draft that I got really didn't make reference to that. So I will leave it to the committee. I'm providing this information because this is basically what I did from here. It wasn't at the request of the program. So I need the clarification, and I don't want to make a mistake of stating that the plan of operation from 2016 is to be rescinded if that's not the intent. Okay, I don't want to make that mistake. However, if you're going to place the services under the new family assistance services, you have to do something about this resolution. You can incorporate it there. I would imagine that would be up to the program. I'm not sure what response the program would have to that. So I'm going to go ahead and stop there for now, Mr. Chair. I appreciate you giving me some time, and like I said, I will provide some amendment language insofar as the bill is drafted after the conclusion of your work session. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Mr. Haven. Thank you for that direction on the school, Navajo school clothing program. Ms. Neswit Gishi and Ms. Key, I'm sorry.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Mr. Haven, for that question requesting for clarification. I thought I was saying it correctly or clearly. So, Mr. Chair, I'd like to have Ms. Rosalind Begay provide maybe a little bit more clarity. Maybe I'm just not relaying the information correctly or clearly, Mr. Chair.
Ms. Begay?
Good morning, Mr. Chair. This is Rosalind Begay. Can you hear me?
Committee, can you hear her?
Yes.
Yate, Shanaido, Shiyaj, that's it, Mr. Chair. The Navajo School Clothing Program, the committee has discussed this topic on a numerous different occasion over the past year. And the resolution that Mr. Ron Haven referenced that was passed back in 2016, that was the Navajo School Clothing Program, that plan of operation was amended back then when the Division of Social Services was making amendments and developing its master plan of operation. That plan of operation was not included, and we have had communication with Department of Justice and the Office of Legislative Counsel, and that the Office of Legislative Counsel had advised that it be rescinded since the Navajo Family Assistance Services was assuming that responsibility to provide school clothing assistance, as well as other financial assistance under that office. So thereby we pursued in that path, and that is why in the proposed plan of operation for Navajo Family Services program, that function, the school clothing function, is included under the Navajo Family Assistance Program. So that office, that program will be providing not only the school clothing, school supplies, but will also be providing other financial assistance as provided by Mrs. Nezuikishi and Ms. Key, like general assistance, burial assistance, CSBG, LIHEAP, also the new program, the low-income household water assistance program. So that resolution, the 2016 resolution, we are requesting that it be rescinded because that will be, that function, that responsibility will rest with the Navajo Family Assistance Services, and it's in the proposed plan of operation. Mr. Chair.
Thank you, Ms. McGee. Mr. Haven, did you get the gist of that response to your question?
Mr. Cherry, yes. I did talk to Rosalind about this, and that I did let her know that I was going to insert the reference to the 2016 to make sure that the committee does understand that that action in effect is going to occur if you are going to reference the service of the actual school clothing under the program that's being referenced here, the Family Assistance Services. If that's what's going to happen here, that's fine. That's clarified, and I think that the thing that the committee I should understand is that the 2016 resolution does specifically make reference to it as a program. Now here it's going to be simply provided as a service under the Family Assistance Service Plan of Operation that is being requested. So I don't have a particular problem with it, Mr. Chair, just so long as the committee does understand that now that is something that is understandable from the perspective of the program itself. That's been clarified for me now. So thank you very much. And the other thing, Mr. Chair, I apologize. I will talk to maybe perhaps Rosalind insofar as the reference to the incentive program over the last since January 2020, and we need to have that clarified at some point, but perhaps not right now. Thank you very much, Mr. Chair.
Yes, thank you, Mr. Haven. I guess the main thing is there was expenditures out of that particular program and account under a different name. And I don't, it's like, is that an audit concern? Because the program I think rested with a different division, and I can't remember for sure. But Ms. Spencer, did you make contact with Office of the Controller?
Mr. Chair, yes, I did. I left a message for her. Thank you.
Okay.
Chair, this is the controller. We're on the line. Thank you.
Thank you. I guess the main part that we have, or I have, is the case management system to be used kind of like a financial management system. And there's expenditures being made based on that particular case management system. Could you give us, the committee, your perception of that, or even not a perception, but I guess real life issues? Thank you.
Hello, this is Controller. I got bumped off.
Oh, yes. Regarding the TAS, the aspect of using the case management system for kind of like a foundation for a financial management system. And but what is your take on that particular aspect?
Okay. Good morning, Chair. This is Controller. And then also members of the HESI committee. Good morning. And then as well as DSS and everybody who's on the line. As far as the question regarding the TAS system, and so just wanted to say that the TAS system, which as described by DSS, I'm sure they know it more than I do, but I think that the relevant question would be how does that work with or relating to the financial processes. As everyone is aware, the FMIS system, the Financial Management Information System, is the nation's official financial system and the only one. And so how the TAS, as far as I know, integrates with FMIS is essentially it is the vehicle that brings or imports, uploads information from TAS into FMIS system. And so usually the information is put in a format that is acceptable as a upload, a data upload into FMIS so that payments can be made. And social services is not the only one that has data port. There are DOTI, we have data port, for example, the scholarships. Usually data port is used in those situations where there's a voluminous amount of payments. Usually there are payments, as in these cases, assistance payments, and then obviously scholarship payments. And so that's pretty much the purpose of it, it's putting the format of the data that gets uploaded into FMIS so payment can be accomplished. That's where you'll hear the word data port. So that's how it works, and particularly to the usage of data port, whether it's TAS or any other software. I know Scholarship Office has their own database. And so obviously those different databases are for different purposes. TAS has a purpose, a case management software in this case. And so that's how it works from our office. What we have had to put in place is when programs like DSS who want to use data port mechanism, we'd always like to get notice ahead of time, because that way it can be configured For example, I believe social services, the school clothing program was trying to use the tennis configuration for the school clothing, and that causes problems. So we usually try to get the notification, and also our office authorizes. So anytime anybody tries to upload information into FMIS, obviously we need to get the authorization, give the authorization, and then work with the program to do the appropriate configuration. The other thing where we are concerned about, obviously in the past, we've had information that isn't good information. There's duplication, let's say. There's also attempts for vendor payments. Those are all not good. We'd also, the reason why is we like everything to go to the appropriate process. For example, payments to vendors should be going through the normal process, which is here at OOC once the program initiates those types of transactions. Everything should go through, contract counting. It should go through purchasing, and then accounts payable in those cases. So that's where we run into problems, is when the data port mechanism is used for other than the authorized purposes. Just mentioning school clothing program, recently we had problems with that because the file was given to us and it wasn't verified. So what that means is, specifically this past fiscal year it was done towards the end of the fiscal year. The file was not verified, meaning we didn't know that there was I believe there was a budget in the fiscal year 2020, but not in 2021. It was unverified. So we've since insisted that those things get verified. And then when we ran that file, it was posted to 2021 instead of 2020 because it was run so close to the fiscal year end, and it was posted in 2021. It causes cutoff issues for FMIS closing. Being this is a fiscal year end closing, that causes issues. It also caused a deficit into the new year. Granted, this was general funds, so we had to make a lot of adjustments and so forth. So that's kind of some of the things we deal with on our end. So I just wanted to say that we've insisted on a lot of these files that get reviewed, make sure that the budgets are in place before they're uploaded, because, that obviously us, unbeknownst, not knowing that there's no budget, and we print these checks, if we don't have the proper controls, these checks may go out without the proper budget and so forth. So those are some of the things we have to look out. We have to look out for duplicate payments, and then also, again, if there's an attempt to pay vendors, just wanted to say that those are problem areas. Again, Dataport has its history with FMIS. I want to look out for the committee. I believe the big fiasco from several years ago, Dataport was used in the discretionary funds issue for legislative. Legislative had access with Dataport, and obviously then they all started just uploading checks, requests for checks, and it became a big fiasco, as everybody is aware of the discretionary funding issues. That started with the Dataport access into FMIS and then getting payments out. So it's always a concern for OOC. Also, just wanted to refer the committee to an audit that the Auditor General has, an outstanding audit. The subject of it is what we call the FMIS address book. The address book is our vendor database, our overall vendor database, and a lot of the concerns regarding that Auditor General's audit is the usage of Dataport. I think some of the issues were duplicate address book records, and a lot of it had to do with the Dataport uploads as well, because our database is growing. So that's been an area where some of the recommendations by the Auditor General is trying to find a way to maybe even, not continuing with a Dataport mechanism. Just wanted to point because of those reasons, we always have a concern, and we'd like to always keep track and make sure around the usage of Dataport. So I believe specifically Taz was responsible for creating errors in FMIS. So just wanted to also point, the duplication that was occurring. And so it's always a concern for OOC. We do still have an open audit from the Auditor General around the address book database, which is fed by, in addition to our normal processing here when we set up vendor accounts, but it's also fed by Dataport usage. So there's a number of things we have to address, issues such as whether we're going to have to say, okay, we may have to cut Dataport usage for everybody and figure out alternative ways to address these types of payments. Of course, everything boils down to not having enough resources here at OOC. And then anytime, I know there's talks always of changing up FMIS. Anytime we are looking to do that, then of course these types of things would have to be on the table as how to address, the Dataport usage. So I just wanted to point that out. Also, FMIS, once the documents get uploaded into FMIS, then there's a number of other things that happen for example, contract accounting does essentially the accounting that gets reported to the federal agencies, a lot of the financial reporting. With social services, I'm always concerned because a couple of things. One, we dealt with a Title IV-E situation where their contractor on the program side was essentially doing what contract accounting was supposed to be doing. And so that is the reason why I refuse to sign off on their contractors' reports to the funding agency, because obviously I have ethical and professional responsibility as a controller and a CPA. So those are things that I've been concerned about. The other thing that we've uncovered recently with CCDF was the access by the program, complete access by the program, which is a breakdown, in my view, of internal controls. They have access to essentially full access to what purchasing was doing. And from what I gathered, there was verbal agreements prior to my time. And so I believe we will be looking at, OOC will be looking at possibly FMIS system control, possible audit findings, because we've had those in the past. And so that's not to say that we're not going to be working with DSS. We are trying to find a way to address their needs, the CCDF. The problem is that whatever this verbal agreement wasn't documented. And so here we are years later, they had complete full access to what purchasing does. And so that's a problem. So going forward, we're gonna have to address it, help them figure it out, help OOC, because that's a voluminous amount of work. That we're gonna be dealing with that C side. So always we're trying to maintain internal control, but that's another issue that we have in addition to the Title IV-E. So the reason why I bring those two up is I'm looking at the plan of operation, and I am always concerned about obviously OOC's authority, but it does, I'm looking at the financial management section, I'm trying to find clarification on how that's different than Title 12, and I'm not sure, there's probably OMB responsibilities in here, but also there's mention of property. I know properties under OOC, and that's authorized under Title 2. So we just need to know from where the program is responsible versus Title 12 and Title 2 for OOC. Sort of clarification that I want in terms of this plan of operations. So I know I went all over the place, but that's our concern from OOC. Thank you for the opportunity to speak. Yeah.
Thank you, Ms. Kirk. And so in that respect, Ms. Nesbitt-Gishi, with reference to the financial management system at slide, let's see. The second bullet point, develop and implement a property procurement and records management. That statement's just hanging out there.
Funding source to the Navajo.
Ms. Nesbitt-Gishi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair. Thank you, Controller, for your comments as well. So on slide 10, financial management section, again, that's currently overseen by Ms. Brenda Sosi, Principal Accountant. Develop and implement a property procurement and records management. And so those are just for internal accounting purposes. An example on property, we are not doing tagging of property. Primarily, we have that in there. So each year, we have to do an exposure summary. And for like, if we're going to get our insurance for our vehicles and something like that. And so we have to make sure at our office that the exposure summary is completed, all property is accounted for, and to ensure that there's no loss of equipment. So that's where it has that. So these are internal processes that we have. We're not taking over any other section or department's duties or responsibilities. We are not infringing on Title II or Title 12. And then the procurement internally, we have a process in place of how to do procurement. We have the separation of duties. One person will obtain any quotations that are required, initiate the, if it's an RDP or purchase order acquisition, and then we have another person that's entering into FMIS for 6B rollout. And then we have an accountant separately to review, to make sure everything's accurate. So these are more internal controls that we have within the division. Again, we're not bypassing any Title II or 12 or any other department, OOC, OMB, property. We're not overstepping those. Those are internal controls within the Division of Social Services. Mr. Chair, thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Nesbitt-Gishi. So
Chair.
Hang on, Honorable Slater. Within that statement, develop and implement property procurement and records management. Like I said, it's kind of like incomplete statement. And so to finish it off, perhaps we could add within the Division of Social Services. Honorable Slater, you have the floor now.
Sorry, Chair. My question is based off of what the controller has shared, Ms. Nesbitt-Gishi. Do you presently have the appropriate numbers of staff, particularly on the IT and financial management side? And if you believe you don't, then how is this new plan going to increase those capacities? And if you don't have the staff that may be needed or identified within the new plan, would that be a vulnerability to the program if you're not able to staff up those positions? Thank you.
Mr. Chair, members of the committee, thank you, Honorable Slater, for the question on staffing. So right now, within the Office of the Executive Director, we do have 2 positions that are currently have completed the Office of Background Investigation. So we will be having a communications manager as well as a deputy division director. And so we have 1 position that is going to be going through reclassification for the Tribal Assistance System administrator. So those are complete the positions within Office of the Executive Director. Now, regarding the Navajo Family Assistance, Navajo Family Navajo Family Assistance Services, we do have, again, as proposed, as Ms. Madeline Key had mentioned, she's a senior program project specialist. So that position will be reclassified to a program manager 2 position. Again, they did not have an accountant. We did advertise for that position. They also have a vacant administrative service officer. So we did receive some applicants for that position. Now, regarding all of the direct services, so there would be primarily 3 key administrative staff within the NFAS, and that would be situated here in Window Rock. Now, regarding the direct services position, they do have senior caseworker positions in 11 different offices currently. And so there are some vacant positions. And so our office currently is working with NFAS, helping them with any financial budgets and stuff like that. This is where our office is working with the entire departments and programs if they're needing additional support. So currently, Ms. Brenda Sosi is doing all of the financial components for NFAS. And then for any human resource, because they don't have the administrative service officer position filled right now. So we have our HR newly hired, as well as Department of Family Services, their HR is helping in that area. So, but we do have a position already budgeted. And for out in the field offices, we are looking at increasing the capacity. All they have are senior caseworkers. So we're looking at creating caseworker positions. So the caseworkers would be determining the eligibility and then moving that application forward to a senior caseworker for review, and then they would be making the approval out at each of the field offices. Again, we're looking at separation of duties, having not the same person doing the whole case as well as doing the approval, then entering the payments. So when we look at internal controls, those are some areas that we're doing for improvement. So we will be looking to fill all of the vacant positions, as well as increasing additional help. So that is an area that we have looked at. Delegate Slater, thank you for the question. Thank you, Mr. Chair.
Thank you. Committee members, any follow-up questions?
Chair, can I ask a follow-up?
Vice Chair Slater, you have the floor. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate the comments from the controller earlier, but I would ask that they be put in writing so the committee can review them before consideration of the legislation. Thank you.
Thank you. Appreciate that, Vice Chair Slater. Ms. Neswitz-Gishi and staff, previously we talked about the Office of Self-Reliance and then the aspect of tribal assistance to needy families. There seemed to be a duplication of services, and wouldn't that also be a program that could be put under Navajo Family Assistance Services? We had asked before to have Department of Personnel Management and the Division of Social Services to coordinate a meeting to where those possibilities would be explored. Ms. Neswitz-Gishi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that follow-up question. Yes, it was a legislative concern. And so we have prepared our response to provide an update, and we have just not made it to the committee. We do have that prepared. I'd like to, I'm aware of the report. I don't want to miss some information. Mr. Chair, I'd like to have Ms. Roxanne Gorman provide that response, because they did reach out to Navajo Workforce Development. And I'd like to, again, turn over the floor to Mrs. Gorman.
This is Roxanne Gorman. The request was to look at similarities between Department for Self-Reliance and Navajo Workforce. The assignment was made to our Education Career Services because that section does the subsidized adult employment that we offer, the extended training for those who want to pursue a certificate, And she worked with her staff to develop the report to contrast how our department operates versus the workforce department. And her report explains the difference in eligibility criteria. Department for Self-Reliance is a TANF program, and to be eligible for TANF, you have to have children, whereas workforce doesn't have that requirement. Also, Department for Self-Reliance enters upon eligibility, begins to work with the head of household to pursue a career to obtain income for a standard of living. As workforce, they look to enter to offering a service limited to a number of universities and different trainings for that adult. They serve, I think, 18 up to possibly 40 or of age. And the Department for Self-Reliance also is income-based and need-based. And we have to use national poverty guidelines. I believe workforce is not, as long as the applicant is within the Navajo Nation, resides within the Navajo Nation, there was some waiver granted. I don't have the report before me, but we do have it ready, and it was done by a very talented young lady, Ashley Velasquez. And we did make the report available to Workforce for their review and input. We haven't heard back from them. So with that, we did not submit the report because we wanted to give them sufficient time for their review. And when I did speak with the manager, the department manager, Ms. Roberta Roberts, she explained that she was going to develop a white paper. So we separately, because of the pandemic, and they were not open during that time, we proceeded to develop the report to look at the similarities, as I understand the assignment. And we did that, and it was prepared. Ms. Neswick-Gishi has it, but we've been waiting to also give courtesy to the workforce department. And they in turn possibly may have been developing a separate report as well, which outlines their perspective. So perhaps it's best to get both, a look at both as a means as to how two different perspectives, one from us, one from them, as to the similarities, because we worked separately. We didn't work together on these reports. I understood there was a timeline. So that report is at Ms. Neswick-Gishi's office, and it's continued upon the response from the executive director of human resources and the workforce manager. And I understand that there is a perception of duplication between us, but we in terms of the services, but we don't, we work with nearby institutions. We don't, what do you call it, define the number of institutions or the training. We do try very hard to work with nearby colleges and universities because we have to maintain our service delivery area. I understand workforce can go at a larger area expansion than we can, so similar to the scholarship office, where the scholarship office can serve nationwide. But for us, we have to stay within our service delivery area, and we have to coordinate with the state TANFs to make sure we're not overlapping. So I'm not sure about duplication and what that is in reference to. We do, and then workforce has a separate system, a separate setup than us. But my advice is perhaps we need to have both reports looked at, and that rests with you all. We merely produced a report, and I hope that was helpful. Thank you.
Thank you, Ms. Gorman. committee members, any further questions? Okay, Ms. Spencer, could you please make contact with Human Resources, Workforce Development, and see if they can send their report?
Okay, Chairman, thank you.
Committee members, any other questions? I guess one thing I'm kind of concerned about is, you know, we're going to be amending the plan of operation, and we amended this plan of operation in 2020, and here we are, 2021. And Ms. Neswit-Gishi talked about the domestic violence aspects of overseeing those grants. I'm just concerned that it's not part of this presentation. So we basically have a division plan of operation being amended, and there's one or two programs still under the old plan of operation, and really not looking at it comprehensively. That is one concern that I have as we move forward. You know, the statements was, preliminary statements was, with this plan of operation that could be in place for the next 15 years. But we're just 1 year away from the previous amendment. So that is a particular concern to me, and how do we proceed regarding my concern? Ms. Neswit-Gishi.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, for that question or comments regarding the domestic violence program. So on the legislation Exhibit A and number 3 under the staffing and organization, it does indicate that the Navajo Department of Family Services is listed in here. So for this legislation, the Department of Family Services plan of operation is not being changed at all. So what was passed in January 8, 2020 still remains as is. So there's no changes. That's why it was not covered in today's presentation. Again, we can have that review of the current plan of operation that was passed by Department of Family Services when we have our work session next week as well, Mr. Chair.
Okay, thank you. Committee members.
Chair Wanika?
Oh, Cecilia, go ahead, Honorable Wanika.
Yeah, Chair, I appreciate your question. That was my concern too, because based on what Ms. Gishi is saying, it's going to be covered at our meeting, because one of the organizational chart is what my concern was, having to do with we talked about Program Manager 2, but there's Program Manager 3, overseeing the program manager 2 position, and there's the chart that's with the legislation, and it seems like that's the question that Honorable Slater asked, but he was just referred to the attachment 1, that organizational chart, where it just provides information from the executive director, deputy division director, and then program manager 2. And in the other, where it says Navajo Division of Social Service, the Department for Self-Reliance, it has 2 program manager 3 in there. And there's an inconsistency, and that's what I would like to have explained. And it makes it hard. I wish we were meeting face to face to talk about a lot of these things. So that's a concern I have, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Winika. I appreciate that focus on the positions. Again, it's the details that you've highlighted. That's very good. Miss Diana Neswit-Gishi, you have the floor to respond.
Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Honorable Winika, for that question for clarification. So for Department for Self-Reliance, in our packet Exhibit B, it has Department for Self-Reliance organizational structure. So Department of Self-Reliance currently has about 140 employees. And so when you look at the Department Manager 3, there are about 180 positions for that department. And so the Department Manager 3 directly oversees 8 management positions, that has administrator, the communication section. So each of those 8 components has a supervisor. And then down below is a Program Manager 3 position that oversees all direct services. So when you see the Program Manager 3, you see the offices, Crown Point, Chinle, Window Rock, Greasewood, Gallup, Kayenta, Farmington, Tuba City. So this Program Manager 3 oversees all of the direct service program supervisors in each of these field offices. And so when you look at all of the number of employees that is under direct services, that's the majority of the direct services. So there's probably about 100 and maybe 110 employees at the 6 field offices. And so the Program Manager 3 oversees those program supervisors at each field office. And then with the administrative supportive offices in Window Rock, there's about 30, I don't know the exact, it's around 32 employees. So when you look at the organization is quite huge. Now, when you look at Exhibit C, the Navajo Family Assistance Services Program, when you look at the organizational structure, Program Manager 2, that's where there's only 1 manager. Again, there's 22 employees currently. So when you see the comparison between a department and a program, we don't need more positions regarding management at the administrative level for NFAS. If there's about 22 employees, again, we're looking at increasing to have a caseworker at each of the 5 agency offices. So it's going to grow a little bit, but it's not going to be as much as the Department for Self-Reliance. That is why there's a Department Manager 3 with Department for Self-Reliance overseeing the administrative section, and then the Program Manager 3 overseeing all of direct services, as opposed to NFAS only having 22 employees at this current moment. Thank you, Mr. Chair, and thank you, Ms. Delegate Winika.
Honorable Winika, did that answer your question?
To an extent, there's a portion of as far as item 4 of the Exhibit C, responsibility and authority. I think that same responsibility lies with Program Manager 3. The part that really bothers me is F, monitor and evaluate program operations, services, resources, staff, property, and equipment, and expenditures to assure, improve, and expand the effectiveness, efficiency, and coordination of direct service delivery. And I'm very concerned about that because as far as this will be under Program Manager 3, having to do with what we're talking about at Blanding, the service delivery is a real concern of mine, and I think we need to have additional discussion on that portion of it. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Honorable Wanika. Committee members, anyone else? Committee members, and let the record show that Honorable Charlene So had to get off the call due to cell phone issues. Honorable Wanika, are you on the call?
Yes.
Oh, I'm sorry. Honorable Halona, are you on the call?
Good morning, sir. Yes, I am. I've been on the call all morning.
Oh, okay.
What?
Yeah. Yeah, I was missing you. Hello?
Yes, sir. I'm still here.
Okay. All righty. Committee members, any follow-up questions? If there are none, then we'll see what further discussions we have on the 11th, and based on that, we could. The 12th is the next regular meeting, and then of course the 19th of May. So those are the two possible dates that we'll have as far as addressing legislation 0077. Again, Ms. Spencer, regarding Honorable Slater's request to OOC, just follow up with a note to her to provide us a written form of what she addressed to the committee. And then we will also be awaiting the report from Human Services regarding the previous directive that there be coordination, collaboration, and apparently it really didn't happen since there's going to be 2 reports. Committee members, any further discussion? And Ms. Patricia Gani texted me and said, and basically relayed that Navajo Technical University's commencement exercises will be May 14 for the certificate program, May 15th for the degree programs. Committee members. All right. Before we conclude this work session, any other announcements?
Yes, Daniel So, this is Eugene. For the record,
Oh, yeah.
I was listening to you. I was listening to you guys. So now I won't get off. I'll go into another meeting. Just for the
Hey,
record.
wait.
Okay.
I asked Jill Biden that you wanted an old man conversation with President Biden. So she'll be getting back with us regarding that. Cecilia.
Diga, hey, she had all this. I said, yes, she just, maybe percentage on some it. She had all this. She had all this. Thank you.
Oh,
I'll appreciate myself.
Thank you. Okay. Any other announcements? So, committee members, just for your information, on the 17th, Mr. Alray Nelson responded to Miss Michelle Cook that employees of the state of New Mexico are still on telework, and it may be June before they're allowed to meet in person. So that would be a little change. So the travel date would then be the 17th, meet at the UNM Pete Domenici building in person. There will be several presenters that would be presenting on Zoom. And then the next day, our regular meeting would be at NTU on the 19th. But the committee members, just to give you continuing developments on some of our work. There's no other questions or statements. We'll conclude this work session. Otto, the staff of Division of Social Services and OOC and other folks that were on the call, thank you for participating in this work session with us. So with that, committee members, we are adjourned with our work session.
Okay, thank you, Chair. Have a great day, everybody.